the partners that are participating in this panel will know the new digital means for the three continents: Spain, Ecuador, Dominican Republic, and China. The speakers, Judith, please. First and foremost, I would like to introduce the moderator of this panel. He is a great human being, Mr. Carlos Manuel Castro Parra. He has broad experience. He has a BA in public accountancy. I'm going to be very brief because of the logistic, and I'm sorry because your resumes are really good, but I have to be brief.
31 years of experience as public accountant, corporate law, and a master's degree in both careers. Founder, partner of Carlos Parra y Asociados. Great experience in this field. And he's going to honor us moderating this panel. And I ask Carlos, do you want me to introduce the members of the panel, or do you want to make the presentation? What do you prefer? Certainly. No one would introduce them better than you. It is my honor to introduce them because I had the honor of meeting them last year. It was a great experience, and I thank you for your welcome. Aquilino Pérez Puga from Vigo, Pontevedra, Spain. Wide experienced in the procedural law, trade, corporate law, and I am abbreviating because his bio is impressive. He's going to be a panelist also. Rafael Herasme Luciano from Dominican Republic with a wide experience in law. Of course, he's a lawyer. Many specialization courses and workshops in different areas, tax or fiscal law, and many other specialties. As a professor as well, he's wide experienced. I'm just trying to abbreviate. And finally, Amador Melgoza, with wide experience. Armando. Also, he's from China. So we will hear what they have for us. Carlos Castro, I give you the floor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Judith. So we're going to start with this interesting panel that I'm going to moderate. I would like to mention that the legal committee has worked very hard this year to present you this topic. And due to the pandemics, our legal services have been affected. It is obvious that All the paperwork and management procedures have reduced, and justice administration, when we go to courts, last year we were talking about oral trials. So the physical presence of the lawyer and the short time to submit cases to a judge and the quickness of the process was something that we presented last year. And we were affected by this when this year we were not able to attend the courts because there are restrictions due to the pandemics. This is a health protection measure due to the quarantine. This World Legal Committee that I lead has three visions on how governments and lawyers have faced this crisis. When you cannot go to courts, but you have to render these services to your customers. So, sorry, he's cutting badly. Sorry, he's cutting. In Central America, we have the representation. Sorry. So they also had this problem. South America is going to be represented. They are part of the bureau with the lawyers that are with us. I want to explain how everything was carried out. And this has been also led by Armando Melgoza. As Judith said that he was from China. He's not from China. He knows very well the Asian region, and he can explain very well what lawyers have done. Finally, you will also have the North America vision. This will be presented by Judith. Something really interesting in Puebla State. That's justice administration, deliberation of judges, and controversy decisions by means of the network. The world is changing and law processes have to change, and we have experiences for you to understand how each region has changed. So I give the floor to Aquilino Pérez Puga. He's going to talk about Europe, Spain, and how legal services changed in this part of the world to online services. Go ahead, Aquilino, please. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you for the introduction. As it was said, along the year, we have already mentioned how this pandemic is affecting our countries, especially for the legal sector, for lawyers. In Spain, online public services were opened from some time ago, but the coronavirus crisis has speeded up these online processes for customers and lawyers. So the future was accelerated. In Spain, we have the new labor law that regulates the possibility that workers can render their services from home at least 2 or 3 days a week. This law is enacted very soon, and the employer and employee would agree upon the days. This is an important advance, and this is one of the first consequences of this pandemic crisis. The truth is that in addition to these laws, we have exercised new legal tools that were not in place before. And probably in the past, this was not present. As I said, this was accelerated by the coronavirus. As I said, online trials and home office are very common right now. So they will be used very soon. I don't know if it is possible to project my presentation. Adrian, please, the presentation of Aquilino. Do you want me to give you the presenter role? You can do it from your machine. If you have problems, we can do it from here. As you wish, you decide as you prefer. Yes, if you can present it, that's okay. Just give me a second, please. So it is ready now. Next slide, please. These initial slides have statistical data. We can see how Spain population is connected to internet. 84% of network users have made online searches to acquire a product or service, and 51% are e-bank users. Thank you. Legal online services are this. They are the most common. They are the ones that lawyers use. I was saying that they are the most common to communicate with justice, administration, judges, courts. Then administrative registries in our professional life to look for a document. Number 3, communications with administrative bodies. This is not only done by lawyers. Can you please mute the microphones to have a better audio? Communications with administrative bodies. For example, the Treasury, Labor Ministry, Social Security, Justice Ministry, and this is used not only by lawyers. And finally, number 4, we have online legal services that are increasingly offered. That's the first advice, company or level. A group of professionals that make available legal advice online. Now, next slide, please. Now, regarding communication with justice administration, this can be done directly or non-directly. For lawyers, there's a platform called LexNet. With this platform, we can participate not only in communications but also in legal services. Since its implementation, physical delivery of documents is not allowed. Everything has to be presented by means of this online tool, LexNet. As I was saying, communication is now done online. It has to be done in a direct manner before trials, and lawyers will submit all documents to judges, to courts. However, there are some legal procedures that have to be done in a direct manner with law enforcement. There are also some insolvency or bankruptcy procedures that have to be done in person. These bankruptcy procedures are done by economists or lawyers. And there are several processes that we have done. We communicate with law management by presenting our reports and also receiving all notices sent by the legal authorities regarding these bankruptcy processes. Communication with administrative registries, as I said, are done almost every single day in the case of individuals, we have access to the civil registry to see birth certificates and any kind of procedure, or also to carry out any public notary procedure. Additionally, we have also the possibility to make online checks of corporations and also administration procedures. Also the shareholder meetings and assemblies. We not only present information, but we could also receive notices. We can also see the roles of shareholders, the assembly minutes, and statutory laws. And finally, we also have the possibility to see the property registries to request informative notes on property, real estates, ownership registries, and rights. Next slide, please. In addition to what I have just mentioned, online communications with different agencies speeds up those procedures that in the past were done in person. Due to the saturation of procedures because of the pandemics, we have started using online procedures. This is a very useful tool to make your tax retentions, or by means of the Treasury, also in order to carry out any tax procedure, tax returns, unemployed workers, to request an online procedure. We also have the possibility to start those legal procedures, and we can also request some notices to be sent to us. Next slide. As we have seen, in the United States, we had the first initiatives of online law bureaus, and they have extended all over the world. In Spain, we can have two different figures. First of all, multinational firms that have established online services long time ago. And then other national or domestic firms and some individual lawyers that are launching startups of legal services. So we can have both big firms and individuals. The idea of online law bureaus to render legal services, review documents or contracts, and also to have some procedures for insurance companies. Next, please. So, in law services, we have some advantages and services for legal natures. Online digital services are going to be faster, more agile, and will save displacement, expenses, transportation expenses. Depending on the firm, they can have access to different kinds of services. The possibility that these procedures can be registered will imply faster services. Next slide, please. One of the disadvantages that we have for these online services is that the person on the other side might not be a lawyer or professionals, and we do not know. So we need to check our databases to verify that they are professionals in order not to have any issues or problems. According to our opinion, another disadvantage is that we do not have that physical interaction with the customer to generate a relationship. This is something that we value a lot. And this is really a problem. We do not have this physical relationship. There are some people that do not have access to these services. Now, trends for online legal services. We know that there are changes in the demand of legal services nowadays. We believe that it is still soon to say that these online services are going to substitute physical services, but the truth is that there is a trend, and we have quicker procedures. As a summary, I hope that you understood my presentation, my content, and the request of UC&CS Global. We have some questions here. The first question is, can we have the minute book online for a company? We said that an answer was that no, this is a physical book. The second one is that it is only reserved for some corporations. And number three, yes, but you need to be a user of this registry with a digital certificate. Second question, what's LexNet? A, a legal database. B, a communication platform for justice administration. C, interactive network of the College of Lawyers. So this is all on my part, Carlos. Thank you. Thank you very much, Aquilino. Now it is clear how things have changed in Europe, the way of organizing yourself before courts, and the possibility to get to online services by means of a platform, and all the advances that we're experiencing since our last meeting in this area. So online work and labor is included as home office. Thank you, Aquilino. We're going to reserve the answers to the end. Now we have Rafael Herasme from Dominican Republic to explain what has happened in Central America. Rafael, please go ahead. Go ahead, Rafael. We can see you, but we think that you're muted.
No. Once the country is declared under emergency state, so on the 19th of March, he dictated the resolution number 6020 that authorized the president to call for an emergency state on the 19th of March. This is when the executive branch declared the decree that order obligatorily the emergency state, and our Supreme Court of Justice. Okay, the second slide, please. So this is when our Supreme Court of Justice issued the minutes, which is 01001, dated 18th of March 2020, suspend all the hearings. Only the Dominican Republic had the permanent cases because they were criminal cases. So So they suspended the domicile arrest, and the permanent attention services offices were enclosed. And also there was a session that the legal figure in the referring or referral process and the known recourse of amparo that protects the fundamental rights, so they couldn't be suspended. So the courts were open. So this is the judicial power measure plan. This is the Act 002. The administrative work were suspended. Since the employees were not all at the court, so the Court of Justice allowed that most of the employees through the what was given by the judicial process started to perform services online. So not like in this at this time they were suspending all the judicial extrajudicial works were suspended. They were not even, there was not notifying of an instant, a hearing, nothing was allowed because all those measures were taken. So in this Act number 2, to reiterate the functioning and supervision of the judges, each president or each judge of its judicial district in the different areas, he was in charge of coordinating, so to initiate what was called a fast verdict, and they took advantage in the pandemic, all those issues that weren't sentenced yet. So with these 3 months, March, April, and May, all the courts reviewed all the pending lawsuits they have. So this resolution proposed by the judicial power helped us a lot. But really, to suspend the works of attorneys in our country was really catastrophic. Like in most of the countries, and always the litigation attorney was affected because he or she is always present at the court. So can you go to the next slide? And this was called the continuity of the works of the judicial system. This is the judicial power open the services in different phases. The first phase, certain activities. If we can change, as you can see, this phase was virtually. So we started with hearings, also the assignation of courtrooms, request of a deposit of documents, and all those measures that were done virtually were done. We like this, that This was on this is the digital phase in the Dominican Republic. To file a lawsuit, everything was done digitally. The documents were scanned, and in the webpage of the Supreme Court of Justice, you forward the application, you're assigned a ticket, and you send this document to the webpage, and the court directly receives all the petitions virtually. Then we had the intermediate phase. It was the opening of the courtrooms, and there it was limited by number of people. They were taking the temperature, and also they were using masks for the attorneys. And not all the courts were open. And also they had to allow the judges to hear a minimum number of hearings. Normally they were on 40 or 50 hearings, and today you can know 20 hearings as a judge. So this is the intermediate phase, and we still are in the advanced phase. This is where all the services and establishments are open, but we haven't reached that phase yet. This is the next slide. And then we had a new act, the 005, the Supreme Court of Justice, taking into account the attorneys that do not have a laptop or a good cell phone to have access to internet, or they do not have the economic means. So those courts is that they open establishments in each court with computers. So for those attorneys that do not have the tool, they can hear, and the court enables everything, and they will be present at the hearings. The presential system that guarantees the access to justice for the users, it is a principle that must be respected, improve the quality of life of judges and servants in some way, the guaranteeing each of the users, and also allows the attorney, without the need of turning on the vehicle or consume gas, they can hear to know the hearings of his or her own office. This is what is called the follow-up to the judicial work during the advanced phase of the plan. The Judicial Power Council decided the following. So to follow up the judicial work during advanced phase, and the reactions and recommendation on the continuity plan of the judicial power works. Each director of each department, for the purposes of giving compliance to the advanced phase. This is an advanced phase that will start as of October. It was supposed to start on the 1st of October, but now it's gonna be started definitely on the 15th of October. So the Dominican Republic OnLine, they worked in 2019, and the plan of the judicial power and the Supreme Court is to have all the normal hearing was supposed to be digital in 2025, but because of the pandemic, the plan had to be implemented after 4 months of the pandemic. This is what the Dominican Republic is doing. I know that many countries here have done similar things. Thank you for your participation. Kisses and hugs for everybody. Well, dear Rafael, once again, you are illustrating. Your presentation has been really interesting. The way we organize ourselves. I like the support of the government in the Dominican Republic supporting the attorneys that didn't have the expertise, but all the attorneys, since they couldn't work, provide services to our customers, and the needs of the justice provision. So we had to adapt ourselves to this new online option. And definitely the Dominican Republic is a clear example of how gradually we adapt. As now we have able to reach the phase 3 as of the 15th of October. In South America, there's no better example. The country that was really affected in Yaquiri, like in Ecuador. So we want to see what happened in Quito and in Ecuador. That's why I want to give the floor to Mr. Alan Almeida. Good night, good evening. I don't know if you can hear me okay. It's a great pleasure. Thank you. I think I turned on the video. First and foremost, I just want to tell you that I'm really glad to see you again in this virtual setting. No. Ya se me fue. Román. No. 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 Es que tiene un corto, ¿qué onda? So I want to share. Así. Esto no sirve. Estaba trabajando. Sí. Okay, so as I said, and this, well, right, it's a great pleasure for me to explain to you, as the previous speakers said, all the actions being made in the world have been focused on the governments will need to find a better access to justice, both for attorneys that are the operators of the systems, with fiscal prosecutors and judges, and also the people that are brought to justice claiming for the rights that have been breached. And during the pandemic, as well as the attorney Rafael said, like in Dominican Republic and in the rest of the region, the governments have taken actions so to have access to justice and this fundamental right. In this framework, In Ecuador, President Lenin Moreno, on the 16th of March 2020, he, by decree, declared emergency state. The rights to mobility, rights to meeting, to the free gatherings, among other rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. But this exception state was valid until the 13th of September. As you know, the rights are breached, like my colleague from Carlos, they are crimes committed, and according to the Integral Criminal Code in Ecuador, they have immediate treatment and they have to be judged at that time specifically. So the lawyers and the council of the Judicature issued resolution that the judge would continue operating because we completely closed everything, but this created a collapse of the judicial system. So the pandemic was not supposed to grow, but in virtue of the things that were happening in Guayaquil, where we had deaths because the measures were not taken on a timely fashion. So the government found a way to provide effective access to justice, and in this way to surveil and guarantee not to have violations in those rights. The Council issued some decisions, so the courts will accept orders, the habeas corpus, so those actions towards to arrest illegally outside of the periods stated by law. And in Quito, the only actions that the jurisdictional staff would receive were the ones habeas corpus. So there were some claims of collegiate organs that present constitutional orders because of the rights breach of the Council of the Procurement. So that's why the suspension was given. So in this sense, the Council of the Procuring Office generated or created that the judicial processes to be digitalized. So this council issued a resolution by which for the first time in Ecuador the digital hearings were allowed. We were talking about the digital proceedings for those instances where the people deprived from liberty were in reclusion centers and they weren't able to go to a hearing, and it was a Polycom that allowed people that were deprived from liberty in the rehab centers, and also hearings when people were outside the country and they can present to the hearings in the consulates. So the Council of the Prosecutor Office, that are the operators of the system, will start work and generate the processing of cases that were complicated, but because of this, they were getting worse. Oops. So they so between the attorneys there was a problem. So there was competition in the territory by virtue of the mobility restrictions because of COVID, or the operators of the systems were out of those places. In Ecuador, there's territorial competence in territories and the states, and all the judge in the case of digital hearings and remote working, by virtue of the mobility restrictions caused by COVID or physical disability. So to protect in some way those digital hearings that were not in the general organic processes in Ecuador, but they were allowed because of this situation. So the installation of these hearings were protected. So in the future, because before the hearings were held in the courtrooms, but this is the installation, physical installation did not create problems of territorial competence, and in this way we started working and issuing this kind of processes, and each one of the attorneys were helped. Also, there were remote work to public servants. It was a valid system to provide services in ordinary or normal days. The public servant performed activities outside the installations of the public institution by using ITC. As I said, in Ecuador, it's looking like for not to affect the system, so the public servants can work from home with their own computers or given by the government. And in this way, so not to affect the service. And on the other hand, the Council of the Prosecutor Office created on only one firm to submit the proceedings or documents. This electronic signature was obtained during the pandemic. This wasn't like the normal practice, but the proceedings are uploaded to SATGE system that belongs to Ecuador, but the submission of the documents were physically done. So with the ITC technology, the attorneys were able to obtain this electronic signature, and with this we were able to submit the documents and trying to solve problems in trials. Also, so if there's a lawsuit, we can submit proceedings digitally or through emails of each judicial entity to avoid crowding in the provinces. What does that mean? That currently the division of the competences in the city is given by districts. We have the north, center, and south districts, and because the attorneys have to travel long distance and all the paralegals to submit the writings, but the implementation of digital service through the digital submission of documents have been benefits, but there are disadvantages, like in letters and notes, and where the lawsuits that are submitted are extremely extensive because of the burden of the proof. And this has caused that we as operators sometimes we see ourselves limited in the submission of physical documents because the web page does not allow uploading many documents. So those are specific problems, but in some way limit the free exercise of a profession of attorneys in Ecuador. But the Council of the Prosecutor Office is trying to solve it by giving certain so in this way we were able to submit it in person in each one of the jurisdictions we have.
And this pandemic has caused in Ecuador some positive things. In Ecuador, for example, there's a regulation that allows the creation of simplified limited companies. This is progress because we were left behind in this sense. When Colombia implemented this, Aquilino knows about this in Europe. Those are corporations that allows agreements among partners by the will of the parties. This is a kind of partnership of a wide implementation, and the ruling part is the will of the parties. So there is a lot of dynamics among the relationship of shareholders. Now, with the startups, crafts in Ecuador, also messenger services, co-working sites. This is generating more trade. And sometimes regulations are limited because the regulations take place after happens the fact. So we need to regulate interactions with the participants of trade by the will of the parties to generate these kind of actions. Also quorum quality, conditions to increase capital, relationships of stakeholders. Many things you as experts know these much more better. Government institutions, on the other hand, like the Social Security Institute in Ecuador, labor ministries need to modernize and need to apply new technologies. In which sense? Some state entities used to work very well, like customs, the National Ministry of Intellectual Property, the Internal Revenue Services for electronic tax returns. But some institutions like the State General Controllership was forced to update or being left behind. This has generated many good experiences in the system operators and government agencies that are not efficient. With this new justice element, which is Twitter, they have to generate better satisfaction experiences from users. They need to improve their services and obviously to have a more effective access to all the administrative procedures. Well, this is it in my part from Lex Bureau in Ecuador. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. It's impressive. Many things that we have seen, we can recall how many experiences you had in Quito and how you had to resolve all those issues with all these advances. So, all these processes in management in Ecuador, for example, that experience of home office in Spain, and now we have changes, electronic signature, online services, social security, the institute that had to modernize and got into the online procedures. Really interesting. That was due to the need that creates all these modifications. Now, well, we're going to hear about the different places. Good afternoon to all of you. Good evening to many of you. I'm going to make it simple. Many of the topics that have been presented today at the end are very similar in Latin American countries. With the implementation of new technologies, things that are happening all over the world. Can I have the presentation on the screen, please? So, I'm going to give you more data in those topics that I believe are different, at least in the comparison of my country. I am Mexican. I was told that I was from China, but no, I'm not from China. So at the end of the day, we are going to see which are the different procedures. And what I'm going to share is more data. This is interesting, as Carlos mentioned, from where we got. But it seems that the origin was not China. This is not so important, but to have advance in these topics. Interesting topics about China. Electronic systems started in the criminal justice. Intelligent systems are not new in the world. In Europe, they use them. This is also used for courts. So, without the intervention of a physical presence, resolutions are issued. The assessment of the person is not so transcendental, and this is one of the main topics. In China, the same happened. They standardized convictions. Next, please. Something interesting in China, as you can see now, and this was quite interesting for me and for the other panelists. I want to ask you about this. I'm going to present some figures, but also the total of cases that started to be managed in an electronic manner. They have identified, as of today, by the Supreme Chinese Power, those crimes that were committed during the pandemics, derived from the pandemics. It's forgery of face masks, trials. So it is quite specific, not only by subject, but also the number of crimes that were the result of COVID-19. In Mexico, we do not have this specific information. It is very general and backward. For example, in the pandemic, we have 2,736 cases only for COVID-19. They are related to the pandemic, these crimes. A total of 1,360,000 cases online. Our countries will not have this figure even if they are added all together. There you can see the detail on how these more than 1 million cases that were presented. And we have the number of hearings that took place, mediations, as you can see. Out of this total, almost half of them were mediations. It is interesting within this same process that we were talking about in technology. Lawyers are litigants and we look for controversy. You can see here that mediation is an interesting topic. And this is due to the number of cases that were resolved. So these data are important. At the bottom, there is a chart, and you can see how every year cases have increased. This accelerated the process, of course, the pandemic. And not only the number of cases, but also cases resolved during the same year. In Latin America, for example, we have a backlog which is impressive. When we have a comparison of submitted cases and resolved cases, it is huge, the gap that we have. So as you can see, in China, they are taking advantage of technologies to have a better response. As you can see, this chart depicts the number of cases by subject matter. Civil and trade cases are the highest. Criminal and administrative are small figures. It is interesting to see all this data. I am not having a practice in China, as all my colleagues, but I think that all this information is so interesting for the specific information that they have. This is also interesting for accountants, not only for lawyers. Of course, many of us are in corporate law and try to assist our customers. But one of the elements for international corporations is to know where they can make business in the best way. For example, Mexico dropped in the last year. It was a very attractive country and now it is not. China derived from legal matters. As you can see, court efficiency has increased. In 2 years, they dropped 50% of their backlog. So this is quite interesting for accountants, knowing that it is not only cold numbers, because these figures could be interesting to attract investments. Many times, this information is not shared with the customers, and they are really interesting. And this information is related to commercial activities, of course. As you can see here, there are several proposals here in the area of subject matters. Maybe the next slide. Please get back. There was a slide that is missing. Bullying, school bullying, it's a global issue of big concern to the government. And it is also part of electronic data. As you can see, this is an important topic. They are not leaving this problem to teachers, and they are undertaking actions to resolve this problem. Next. As you can see here, these are very specific topics related to pandemics. These figures are related to pandemics. They even know which criminal acts took place. Specification of what happened, fraud related to the sale of any product, manufacturing of products that didn't meet the requirements. We saw, for example, in Mexico that all face masks, if they didn't comply with the requirements that China had, export was blocked and they could not leave China. That was interesting. There was the idea that China sent everything. It was not the case here. Authorities stopped a lot of transactions and shipments if exporters didn't meet the standards to be exported all over the world. This was a protection for all over the world. It could have been a major problem. Also, false information, inferior quality, interesting figures, as you can see in this slide. It is not only the crime, but specific data of crimes. We do not have this piece of information. This is really interesting. Next slide, please. This is rather related to crimes. At the end of the day, this is general matters. They have focused more on criminal cases here. That's the nature of all these elements. At the end of the day, we have all of them as we previously saw. Civil and criminal cases have the highest percentages. And at the end of the day, they have a high percentage of what's happening in this country. We're just about to finish. This is the way they're organized in the area of specific crimes. According to criminal law, you can see figures, percentages. So this information is quite specific. Next slide, please. Same statistics. You can see the increase of breaches and the number of cases that have been managed and resolved. Well, I wanted to show you the statistics and figures. When we share advances in technologies, different topics, how to observe quarantine, confinement, needs also to analyze data, and we can learn. In this way, we can contribute with information to our courts, and this is providing us a clear path of our direction. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. Before you leave, I want to apologize. Please don't leave, because after conclusions, Carlos, my apologies to Armando Melgoza, because I didn't have his bio here. Sorry, I do not know all participants 100% because it said China, and I said that he was from China. Sorry, my apologies. Mauricio clarified this to me. He's from Mexico, and he is closely related to China. My apologies. Please. It's okay, no problem. Also, my apologies to Alan Almeida from Ecuador. I didn't have his bio in my hands. Sorry, thank you very much. I love your presentations. I wanted to apologize before anything. Now, Carlos Castro, please. He's the friend of everybody in the firm. Continue with your message. Thank you. Thank you, Judith. No worries. These things happen. But it is interesting to see this panel was really interesting. We have worked hard. We have had monthly sessions, and Mr. Melgoza deal with different articles, and we meet regularly and see matters of other countries. And I hope that what we presented was interesting and useful. Sorry, he's cutting badly. We cannot understand what he says. The world in different regions had to adapt to the pandemic or pandemics. If all the offices are closed, you cannot go to notary public, so this is a new way to do things. And also in Ecuador, how they assisted people to get assistance. That's interesting. In Europe, they organized themselves as well for legal procedures with these new activities. Finally, Armando, with your presentation and statistics from China, they were right and interesting. Due to these figures, we can see that there's some advance. I think that they adapted very quickly to this crisis by working online. Their expertise was already in place and they put it at work with the pandemic. Well, this is all in my part. I hope that you found this panel very interesting. And we will continue working on this. You have our commitment to keep you posted. Good evening. And as I said, we still need to see North America, Mexico, to talk about different experiences for online procedures. I give you the floor, Judith. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you, Carlos. Now we will continue with our agenda. First, we're going to hand out our participation diploma to Carlos Castro, who was moderator of this panel with very interesting presentations. This widens our knowledge of these regions. I'm going to ask Atanasio Ramirez Morales, please, could you be so kind to open your microphone and give this participation diploma to Carlos Manuel Castro? Thank you. Dear friend, it is my pleasure to see you, even through this screen. And thank you for your role as moderator in this panel. Can you hear me? We can hear you perfectly. My greetings from Acapulco, Guerrero, Mexico. Thank you for your participation in this panel. It was conducted properly. I loved to hear Alan Almeida, Mr. Melgoza. Thank you, dear friend Carlos Manuel Castro Parra. UC&CS gives you this participation diploma for your valuable participation as moderator for the presentation of this panel, Legal Services Online before COVID-19. Thank you for your participation. Congratulations. My greetings to Guerrero State, and it was really an honor to moderate this panel. My pleasure. Thank you very much, Mr. Atanasio. Carlos Manuel Castro, please, can you hand out participation diplomas to our panelists that have integrated this panel? I give you the floor again. Sure, Frida, this is an honor. I am Judith, sorry. So, I am not a CPA, I am a lawyer. But I have worked a lot with accountants, so I can also be a CPA, why not? Dear Aquilino, thank you for your intervention.
I grant the following diploma to CPA Aquilino Pérez Puga for his valuable participation as a speaker in the Technical Conference of Cycles 2020 on the online legal services before the COVID-19, legal proceedings and justice administrations in a digital manner. Thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you very much to organizations for inviting me to participate in these panels. I always learn things, and I send you a big hug. Hopefully next year we can celebrate this in person. It's a pleasure, brother. Likewise, my dear friend, Alan Almeida. Alan has a BA in laws. Your presentation was excellent. You illustrated South America. So we were very well represented in Ecuador. Your presentation, that's why we are granting you this diploma to CPA Alan Almeida for her valuable participation as a speaker in the Technical Conference of Cycles 2020, and congratulations. Thank you very much, Alan. If there are no further comments, we can extend the following diploma. Mr. Rafael Herasme Luciano. Rafael? No. So we talk about between the North part and South America. No. I liked a lot your presentation and to understand something that we have talked about before, the also the tax support.